Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's talk about some Impact Wrestling. Of course, as is the case right now when it comes to Impact, because they've just had another set of TV tapings. We spoke about this yesterday, but since they've had another set of television tapings, we are going to have to issue a spoiler warning before we get into this, because we are going to be talking about some news from yesterday's television tapings. Of course, they had another set of TV tapings yesterday. We're also going to be talking about a big free agent signing for Impact Wrestling as well. So again, spoiler warning, you might want to turn away now or stop watching now because there are spoilers ahead. I'll give you a countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's get into the first big story, and that is the signing of former NWA television champion Zicky Dice, because Impact Wrestling has reportedly signed former NWA World Television Champion Zicky Dice. Dice recently inked a multi-year deal with Impact Wrestling. This is a report by Fightful Select, which of course is Fightful's Patreon service, so be sure to check that out and subscribe. They are reporting that Zicky Dice has signed with Impact Wrestling. It was noted in a report from Tuesday's Impact Wrestling television tapings in Nashville, Tennessee at Skyway Studios that Dice made his Impact Wrestling debut in a tag team match with Manny Lemons against Falabar and No Way. Fightful has also added that Dice will be part of the new group with Brian Myers and Sam Beal going forward. So Brian Myers is actually going to be getting a bit of a faction going forward in Impact Wrestling, and part of that faction is going to be none other than Zicky Dice. Now, Zicky Dice chose to leave the NWA after letting his contract expire at the end of 2020. Now, he had originally asked for his release in the summer of 2020, but he was not granted that. Dice made his first and only appearance for AEW on an episode of Dark this past June, losing to current IWGP United States champion Lance Archer, or the former IWGP United States champion Lance Archer, must be said, because he just lost that championship to Tanahashi this past weekend. Now, before this week's set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, Zicky Dice last competed at the MLW Battle Riot event on July 10 in the Big Battle Riot match. He dropped the NWA World Television Championship to former champion The Pope in October of 2020 in the Primetime Live event on Fight TV, and has only had a handful of matches since then. The match on AEW Dark, the MLW Battle Riot match, a loss to Odin's Son at Effie's No Peace Underground show on June 11, and then, of course, his debut at the set of Impact Wrestling tapings over the course of the last few days. Zicky Dice is an interesting name. I watched quite a few bits of Zicky Dice, his career in the early days of the NWA, when on NWA Power prior to the pandemic. And look, Zicky Dice is a very talented guy. As you can tell, his nickname was Outlandish. That was the gimmick, Outlandish Zicky Dice, and he's over the top. His work in the ring is okay. The place that Zicky Dice really does shine is his promos. I think that he's kind of been on, I don't want to say hiatus, but his career's almost been on a little bit of pause because of the issues that he was having with the NWA. He was among many of the names that was under contract to the NWA last year, where they weren't producing television in the early days of the pandemic, and they were just kind of stuck. Now, some people were allowed to get out of their contracts with the NWA. Names like Eddie Kingston, etc. come to mind. But there were other names like Zicky Dice that were just kind of stuck, and he was stuck under contract. They didn't want to release him from his deal. Eventually, his contract did expire, but it meant he had to sit out the majority of this year. I do think, and I might be wrong, this is kind of just an assumption on my part, to be honest with you, but I do think that maybe there was a feeling in himself that he was seeing these other NWA stars getting opportunities in, say, AEW during the pandemic, and he would also get the same opportunities. He was a former television champion. He was a featured part of NWA programming. He would do well in AEW. And that opportunity never really came around. And I don't know why. I know he was doing lots of interviews with people like Fightful. I saw an interview he did with Sean Ross Sapp, and he was discussing his career. He was discussing the opportunities that he hoped to be available to him in the future. And for whatever reason, they didn't really come. I think Impact Wrestling is a good place for him, to be honest with you. I didn't see him getting a home realistically in AEW. I just don't think he fits there. I think an Impact Wrestling suits him better. I think that he is this gimmick that's over the top. Again, he's a good worker, but it's the promos, it's the character of Zicky Dice that I think is where he thrives. And I think given that Impact Wrestling have done quite a lot of comedic segments over the course of the last 18 months or so that have been, really over the top, or really, I don't want to say outrageous, but really just surreal. Maybe when I think of Wrestle House, I think of Who Shot Johnny Bravo, that kind of sort of stuff that suits Zicky Dice, and I think that's probably the best place for him. So I'm glad to see him sign a deal with Impact. Look, a multi-year deal with Impact, that's a big deal. That's a great signing for himself, for someone that requested or wanted to get out of the NWA and then hasn't done a lot this year. I'm sure he's very, very glad to finally get a contract, and it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to do with Impact Wrestling going forward. Again, he's going to be part of this faction with Brian Myers and Sam Beal, and we'll wait and see what that has in store. For me, that whole faction with Brian Myers and Sam Beal hasn't really grabbed me that much recently. I'm interested, of course, in Brian Myers versus Christian Cage at Impact Emergence. I've already heard that it's an excellent match, to the surprise of nobody, of course, because why wouldn't that be a good match? But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what he does with Impact Wrestling going forward, and we'll have to wait and see more about that. Now, once again, spoiler warning, as we are going to get into some big moments from the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings. So I'll give you another spoiler warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's get into the big spoiler warning. That is Hikuleo appearing at the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, because this influence of the Bullet Club at the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings has continued. Now, of course, at the last set of Impact TV tapings last month, we saw the leader of the Bullet Club, Jay White, be involved, and eventually he recruited Impact Wrestling star and former X Division champion Chris Bay to join the Bullet Club. Well, at the latest set of Impact TV tapings, we didn't actually see any Jay White. He did compete for New Japan at the Resurgence event over the weekend, but there was no Jay White, unfortunately. But we did see Chris Bay get some backup from the Bullet Club in the form of Hikuleo. Eventually, they had a match against New Japan Tag Team FinJuice and defeated them at an upcoming event. Now, for me, this was interesting. Look, Hikuleo, he had the match against Lance Archer on the Fight for the Fallen episode of Dynamite a few weeks ago, and he comes obviously from a lineage, Tonga Sung, and I was not blown away by him, so I don't know what this match will look like. I was actually on the Distractions Patreon last night. Shout out to them. Be sure to subscribe. It was a lot of fun. We spoke for like an hour and a half. It was great. And we spoke a bit about Jay White, and we spoke a bit about the Bullet Club's influence at this latest set of TV tapings, and how it just feels a bit strange, really. And the reason I say it feels a bit strange is because, Jay White came in at Slammiversary, and the general impression would be they're building to something. Surely they're building to something here. They're teasing that Jay White's going to face Kenny Omega, or they're teasing that Jay White's going to be challenging for the Impact World Championship, and that just didn't really happen. He wrestled at the last set of Impact TV tapings, recruited Chris Bay, and now he wasn't there. It kind of just feels like maybe Jay White was there just to get a New Japan, or rather a Bullet Club foothold in that show, and then Jay White can come back whenever he pleases. I don't know. It more feels like they were told Impact, Jay White's available for Slammiversary. Do you want to use him? Yes, we do want to use him. Okay, you can use him for a set of TV tapings. Is he going to be at the next one? No. We'll figure it out. It kind of does feel a little bit like that. I'm not against at all the Bullet Club having an influence on Impact on Access TV, because I like the synergy between Impact and New Japan, but it does need to go somewhere. It does need to build to something, and unless it all purely is just a vehicle to get Chris Bay over, and if that's the case, I'm happy with that too. I'm more than happy if that's just the case there, but it does feel a little bit strange not having Jay White's influence, but I guess by not having Jay White's influence, we still have the influence of the Bullet Club on the show. So maybe that's the case that they're going in, but I thought that was certainly interesting. Speaking of interesting, again, another big spoiler here. It looks like we could be seeing the beginning of the end when it comes to Violent by Design, at least a part of it, because this past week at the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, Violent by Design turned on Rhino and attacked him, thus kicking him out of the group. Now, this came during a match where the Decay, Crazy Steve, and Black Taurus defeated Rhino and Dina in a tag team match, and after the match, Violent by Design attacked the former Impact World Tag Team Champion. When I saw this news, it really did catch me by surprise, I'll be honest with you. But the only thing I can think of here is that maybe Heath's coming back. That's the only justifiable thing I can think of here, is that Heath is coming back, and that's what they're going to do, because they're going to have Violent by Design versus Rhino and Heath. If that is the case, my response would be, why would Heath want to be Rhino's tag team partner here? Realistically, why would he want to be doing that? That doesn't make any sense, because if Heath truly wants to be Rhino's tag team partner, which I don't think he would, because you have to remember as well, this is the same guy. This is the same guy here that turned on him, right? This is the same guy that turned on him in the first place. So why would he do that? I don't know. So I hope it's not the beginning of the end of the Violent by Design faction. I don't think it is. I don't think it's the beginning of the end when it comes to the Violent by Design faction. The reason I say I don't think it is because that is a faction that is very entertaining, and it has been a big part of the show. I was frustrated that the Impact World Championship World Tag Team Championship reign was cut short when it came to Violent by Design. I felt that they could have carried on for a lot longer, and maybe it was just a case of the Impact Wrestling officials wanting to get the titles back on the Good Brothers as quickly as possible, considering they were going to be on Impact, AEW, and New Japan. I don't know that to be the case, but that just feels, that was a shame, because I felt there was more legs in that one. There was more they could have done, but they ultimately decided not to do. But Rhino being kicked out is certainly a surprising one. Again, the only thing I can think of here is the thought process of, well, Heath's getting ready to come back soon. Heath can come back and rescue Rhino. Rhino can be apologetic to Heath and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I lost my way. When you left, they kind of indoctrinated me and I was wrong, but now me and you can get revenge on Violent by Design and we can feud with them. Maybe that's the direction that they're going in. Again, to me, that doesn't make a ton of sense, but maybe that's the direction that they're going to go with that one. Nevertheless, that certainly caught me by surprise, it must be said. We also have a new tag team at the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, because Moose and W. Morrissey have teamed together on numerous occasions, on numerous episodes of Impact and at numerous specials over the course of the last few days, signifying that maybe, just maybe, we get a tag team between W. Morrissey and Moose. I'm not totally against this. The reason I'm not totally against this one is because of the booking of Moose recently. The booking of Moose recently for me has been strange, very, very strange, because this is a guy that I felt at one point had to be the guy to defeat Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship. That wasn't the case. He lost to Kenny Omega at Against All Odds, and my reaction to that was, well, maybe it just wasn't the right time. Maybe he can still win the title at some point. Then he lost to Chris Sabin at Slammiversary, which was odd. Yes, he got the win back on a following episode of Impact, but the spotlight was the Slammiversary match, not the Impact match. The ratings are there to prove that. So I found that very strange, and not that he's felt like an afterthought, but he's been having great matches in New Japan, but again, he lost in that one, and it just felt like he signed the contract of Impact, and then he started losing matches, and that just wasn't the trajectory earlier this year for him. So him being in a tag team with W. Morrissey, I like, because W. Morrissey ain't doing jobs to nobody. And he shouldn't be. I know people might not like Big Cass and because of his past in WWE or some of his behavior in the past, but you can't argue that he's money. You can't argue that he's money. You can't argue he's got a great look, and physically he looks great right now, irrespective of his back. If you know what I mean, you'll know what I mean in that case. But he does look to be in great shape, and I'm not against, because it has worked in the past historically, I'm not against the idea or the booking of just a dominating heel tag team. Usually I don't like having singles wrestlers put together in a tag team. I do think, though, it can work if we're talking about singles wrestlers that are two just massively dominating people put together, destroy everyone. And I wouldn't be against that. And W. Morrissey and Moose versus the Good Brothers, I would have them face the Good Brothers and I would have them win. I would have them dominate. And I would have them just absolutely dominate everyone. And it'd be a case of who on earth can stop these guys. And then you find a tag team to do that. Maybe you get a tag team from AEW. Lord knows they've got enough of them. So I like the idea of Moose and W. Morrissey being a tag team. Maybe them being a tag team leads to them feuding with each other. And maybe that leads to an eventual Moose babyface turn. I don't know, again, if that's going to be the case or not. Maybe that's why Moose has been losing some matches recently, because eventually the plan is to turn him babyface and then he will win the Impact World Championship sometime down the line. I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that one, but I'm certainly not against them being a tag team. I do think there is potential money in having them as a tag team. I really do. Finally, This is a really strange one, a really, really strange one. It's been teased that Tommy Dreamer and Christian could have a match for the Impact World Championship. So there was a segment during the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings where Christian Cage came to the ring for a promo. He gave praise to the number one contender, which has been decided also. And Tommy Dreamer came out and put over Christian Cage and said he wants just one more match at some point. They were then interrupted by the number one contender and a brawl came in. I won't say who the number one contender is, even though that's out there. But this felt like a tease. This felt like a tease that they were going to maybe do a Tommy Dreamer Christian Cage match. I like Tommy Dreamer. I'm a Tommy Dreamer fan. Obviously respect his work that he's done in ECW and WWE, everywhere he's been. And furthermore, I respect his work as a producer and part of the creative process in Impact, because I think he does a very good job. But this does feel to be this weird thing with Tommy Dreamer where suddenly, where he's in a bit of a, I don't even know if I want to say it, where he is heavily involved behind the scenes and then he's involved in these major storylines and it does feel very shoehorned. Tommy Dreamer, I'm going to be the Anthem representative. I'm going to be involved in the big angle with Scott D'Amore and Don Callis. Christian Cage comes back. I'm going to work with Christian Cage. Or Sami Callihan's getting over before he faces Kenny Omega at Slammiversary. So I'm going to team with Sami Callihan. Or last year, I'm going to have a match with Rich Swann for the Impact World Championship on my birthday. All of that just felt very odd and very forced. And don't get me wrong, again, Tommy Dreamer is a legend. He's a legend in ECW and his work's very, very strong throughout his career, but it just feels a bit shoehorned, especially when you have such a young roster in Impact Wrestling that you need to be getting over the new talent, and no disrespect to either of them, I have zero interest in seeing Christian Cage versus Tommy Dreamer. I had zero interest in seeing it like 10, 15 years ago, let alone now. I had zero interest. The picture on the screen there is when they were in ECW. I had no interest really in seeing it then, let alone in 2021 inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. Christian Cage is back for not that long period in Impact Wrestling, and they should make the most of it. And making the most of it isn't having a match against Tommy Dreamer, in my opinion. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. So what are your thoughts on all these Impact Wrestling news stories that we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.